why not ask for that raise? Why not ask for that promotion? Why not ask for that new assignment? Why not if you're carrying yourself in a positive way?
Welcome to the Environmental Transformation Podcast, where we bring you interviews with industry leaders, climate champions, sustainability practitioners, EHS and hazmat professionals making an impact in their businesses today. Each leader solving complex challenges and delivering solutions within their areas of expertise. I'm your host, Sean Grady, and thanks for joining us today. Before we jump in, make sure to follow us on your devices and visit my website at www.seankgrady.com and sign up for our newsletter and email announcements. Now let's get started.
Welcome to the Environmental Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Grady, and today's guest is Paul Goudreault. Paul, thank you for joining the show today. Paul is an executive leader and with over 40 years of experience in the environmental consulting and engineering industry, which is how we kind of connected through this environmental consulting space and network. But he also serves as CEO. He served as CEO at two multinational environmental consulting firms and the CEO of a manufacturing company. As the founder partner of Enorine, is that how you say it?
It's called Enorine. Enorine Partners.
Okay, yep. Enorine Partners. Paul mentors emerging leaders advancing employee career growth. Paul has built a global career in engineering and consulting, working in 30 countries and leading $2 billion in sales. Passionate about environmental stewardship, and he has served on multiple nonprofit boards. Paul has been happily married for 45 years to his wife, Katie, with two children, Monet and Adrian, it looks like. Those are awesome names, and congrats on 45. I just clipped 35 myself.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was last May, so just this past month. So welcome to the show, Paul, and we're going to talk about your amazing book here. I'm going to show the listeners the book here. Own Your Career. No One Else Will. And 100 tidbits, career tidbits. I tell you, I read the book, Paul. It was amazing. Great discussion around how should you think about managing your career. And, what led you to write this book?
Speaking of my kids, I figured if I were to write a book, they'd pay attention to me and listen to me a little bit more about career development. Now that kind of worked a little bit, but they're doing fine. So I figured they don't need my help anymore. They're well off in their career path. But really, it was kind of a fun project for me. I retired about 6 years ago. And, as I was retiring, I was asking myself, what was I going to do? I was turning 60 and I figured, that's kind of young to retire, but not really. After being in environmental consulting and engineering for a while.
It's a grind.
Yeah, it's a grind, man. So I figured I got to retire sometime and I got to figure out something to do. So the last 2 or 3 years of my career, I would sit in meetings, executive team meetings, strategy and development meetings, client meetings, whatever it was. And I'd take down these little notes, sit in front was one of them. And I said to myself, what does that really mean? So what I did is I put together these little tidbits that you had mentioned. I put together 100 of them. The first edition was 75. I put 25 more into the edition you have. And then I described them a little bit about what each one of them was. And that's kind of what I did for 2 years before I retired. I had these scraps of paper all over the place and notes written on them and little taglines. And I sat down over a period of, 3 or 4 months and started writing my book. So that's how it all started. And then I'm a groundwater fate and transport modeler by training, believe it or not. That's
all right.
That's what
You're
I did.
hydrogeo.
A hydrogeo. And, analytical models are dear to my heart. And so I thought to myself, what am I going to do with all these tidbits? I have to have some sort of model. And so within the book, I have what's called an ADAPT model, which is the ADAPT Career Lifecycle model. And it kind of leads you through a progression of a career. Not everybody's career follows the same path, but, as a general kind of cadence to how you develop your career over time. So my analytical model, my ADAPT life cycle, and then the tidbits came together in a book.
I mean, that's great. It all kind of synergy-wise works well, describing, the process of career growth for any professional. Doesn't really matter where you are in your journey. You could be just starting out. You could be midway through. You could be on the tail end. You could be right there at the end going, now what? Right.
Right.
But I thought that the book, when I read it, the mindset of it was really the premise, so to speak, was about acting like a CEO of your own career. And
Mm.
I kind of wondered, don't you think many people view themselves, I don't think personally that many people view themselves that way when it comes to their own careers. And why do you think that is? I mean, they don't probably think of their own career and managing it as the CEO.
You're right. I think the ownership of your career is really a challenge. It's not only a challenge for the individual, but it's a challenge for organizations. I mean, at my previous companies, we'd have these career development training sessions, we'd have mentoring programs, we had, skill development programs. Anything you really wanted. It was really hard to get traction in the organization because people were standing back. They weren't quite engaged. They didn't really feel like they wanted to take on the extra time and effort to do it. And so that ownership part, I think, is super important. And when I look back at my career, I kind of just followed my path over time. There's probably decisions I was making throughout my career that was about career and life and balancing career and life and partnering with my job to generate the value in my life, et cetera. That was all happening, but it wasn't really systematic. It was kind of just
Mhm.
organic. And so I think the ownership part of your career is really important and to give permission to people to do it. I think it's important for someone to say, you are in control of your career. Not everything, of course, some things just happen. But like with anything that's good, it's worth planning, it's worth committing to, and it's worth setting goals for. So I think that's just the basis is, you have permission to own your career, go do it. No one else is going to help. No one else is going to do it for you. They might help you, but they're not going to do it for you. So that's why
That's
I named the book the way I did.
And that's so true. And I think that if more professionals start thinking about their career as, being a CEO. It almost like running your own business, which your business is your career, right? And I always would say in consulting, I'd say, well, if you run your project like you're the owner of the project, then you'll always have a job because you're going
Yeah.
to care that you do a good job. Run your business like you're the CEO, and you'll be
Yeah.
in business. You always have business. So I just
Yeah.
that's good advice there. I think it's challenging for young professionals today and really a lot of us that are still in the workforce, just figuring out where do I go to
Mhm.
level up.
Yeah.
I mean, leveling up is a big thing. You talk about it in the book too about, what can you do? What are some things you can do to level up,
Mhm.
in your career?
Mhm.
When you think about that, what are some of the things that come to mind for you when it's this level up discussion?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, our industry is really a great industry. I mean, I always think, I tell people your job is your least important part of your career. And people look at me like, well, what's that mean? If you look at it, you want to pick and choose an industry that's growing, that's has opportunities that will evolve over time and be relevant over time, right? And if
Mhm,
you look at the environmental consulting engineering, it's kind of where I grew up and kind of where you play as well. And a
mhm,
lot of your listeners play in this kind of environment, this industry environment. It's a great environment. There's still so many opportunities for young people
mm,
to grow a career. So that's number one. Pick a career that you love. Pick a career that has value, that will be relevant, and that will provide you opportunities. Number two, I think it's about picking the association, the organization, the company, whatever you want to call it, the entity that aligns with your cultural beliefs and values. Now, that's kind of maybe a little cliche at this point, but you do want to work in a company or with people that are aligned with your own beliefs,
right.
how they behave and how they interact and how the company treats you is super important. I've had
Mhm,
one industry, actually two. You mentioned the manufacturing company. That was when I had a non compete and I couldn't work in the industry for very long, for a couple of years after sale of the company. But I've had really one industry. I've probably worked for 5 or 6 companies, which, another subject is that's changing rapidly. A lot of people are moving around, which is fine too. And then I've had probably 25, 30 jobs, right? So when you think about leveling up, you think about, am I in the right industry? Am I with the right organization? And my job will evolve. My job will change. I won't have the same job in 2 years, two and a
right.
half years. I'll be doing something different. And that's kind of where I think you have to start paying attention is if you find the right industry, you find the right employer or company, let's look at your jobs within a maybe 24 to 28-month life cycle in the sense that, it takes you 6 months to maybe sometimes a year to really get fluent in your job. What are
Mhm.
your expectations? What are your goals? How are you going to achieve them? How do you become effective?
Right.
After that, you're looking for more assignments. What else can I do in this role to really give myself a challenge, give myself some opportunities? And
Uh-huh.
after that, you're probably looking for a new job, not a new job someplace else, but maybe a new role somewhere, either in the organization or outside the organization. So I always think about those three things. And if you can pay attention to being in the right industry with the right organization, then look at your jobs as stepping stones, things that you're going to do over time to gain a meaningful role and to provide you a meaningful career and purposeful life.
Absolutely. No, that's good. That's good. In the book, you described how the ADAPT Career Lifecycle model can help professionals or really anyone developing a structured approach to managing their career path. Can you explain this approach a little more clearly
Sure.
for listeners and just kind of
Yeah.
break it down so maybe people can figure out where they are in this life cycle approach as you describe it?
Yeah. It's super easy. It's again, this is my hydrogeology background, fate and transport model that comes in, but I developed a model called ADAPT. It's called acquire, develop, apply, produce, transition. So there's 5 stages, and it pretty well mimics generationally where we are. I mean, if you look at acquire, it's about getting those basic building blocks that you need for your career or your profession. It's going to school, it's getting certifications, it's doing training, it's getting apprenticeships. There's all types of things you can do to kind of get the building blocks of your technical field, your profession, et cetera, right? Now,
Hmm.
that's probably Gen Zs right now are still kind of either in the acquire or the develop phase of their life cycle. The develop phase is you have some basic building blocks. You're in the workforce, you're working with teams, you're learning how to work together. You have assignments, you learn about accountability. You learn about organizations, you start feeling the culture of the organization. That's kind of the develop phase. It could be your first role. It certainly won't be your last role, and it probably won't be, the
Right.
company you're with forever. And then the A is apply, and in apply, I think about, "Okay, I feel good about this industry. I really like this industry, and, the organization is comfortable. They provide me plenty of opportunities, and, I'm in a technical role now, and I really see this developing over time." Or I'm in a project manager role, and I see that developing, or I'm in a business development role, I see this developing over time. You start feeling comfortable with your position and your future growth in that organization or that industry. The fourth step is produce, and I call that kind of the power step. It's where you should be achieving your aspiration, whatever that is. Maybe it's to make zillions of dollars, maybe it's about being CEO, maybe it's not, maybe it's just about creating a reputation, a legacy in your career that's meaningful. You're building relationships with clients and colleagues that are long lasting. You're producing and you're achieving your aspiration. The last
Hmm.
step is transition. And in transition, which I'm in, you can either retire or reinvent. I chose to reinvent myself to an author, and that was fun, and it's been fun. And I'm sure there'll be another transition in the
Yeah.
future. But that that adapt life cycle just gives you some guideposts, and it allows you to experiment within those stages and understand what's coming next and just prepare yourself for what is next in your career.
Now, imagine though, you could be like a mid-career professional. You've gone through maybe the whole adapt cycle, and now you're sitting there going, "I got to start again because
Yep.
I got to start something new again.
Yep.
I'm too young to retire, and maybe you don't want to be in the same industry, or or maybe you want to go to another company that's similar, but there's a lot to learn. But you kind of
Yep.
restart the cycle, don't you?
Exactly right. Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, it's not necessarily linear. It could recycle at any one of those stages. You go back to acquire. A lot of people go back get an MBA, or
Hmm.
get their PE or PG or whatever they might do. They might change industry. They might change professions. They might skip out and become a marketing and business development person. They need account management training. So you do come back once in a while and you test yourself and you have to prove yourself again and establish a new aspiration and move forward. So but again, I think it's in the context of, you have 45 years, 40 years, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's a long time to really develop, your skills and to
yeah,
produce and grow and
yeah,
network
yeah.
there's a lot there,
And give
absolutely,
yourself grace, right? You don't need
yeah,
to jam your career in 10 years, just give yourself time to grow. And I mentor a lot of people now, and, a lot of people maybe in their mid-30s, they go, "I still don't know what I wanna do, Paul." I said, "That's fine." I said, "You don't know what you don't know what you're gonna do, but you also know what you don't wanna do." So at
right.
this point, focus on those things you wanna do, and that'll help provide some clarity.
No,
Again,
it's
it's a
good.
long journey, right?
That's good advice, though, but you're right, it's a marathon, it's not a 5K, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's good. Well, one of the things I caught and I kind of read in the book that was really important, I think you made great points about, which was how important is it to be coachable, to be successful throughout your career?
Well, I think, I wrote a second book, which is Own the Life You Deserve. And within that, I put together an assessment. And that assessment kind of evaluates 10 building blocks around your career and 10 building blocks around your life. And it's easy to use and so on and so forth. But what I'm learning is that the one thing that people say they're lacking is what I call an advisory team. And again, when I look back at my career, I don't think I called my team an advisory team, but I certainly worked with people and they helped me build my career. So, from a coachability standpoint, I would ask you, do you have a coach? And the coach is someone who makes you more effective in your role. If you use a sports analogy, it's about, do you have someone who's going to teach you the basics of your job and your role and can help you become more effective and more efficient in your role? Do you have a mentor? Now, this is someone who's not looking at your current role, maybe, but they're looking at your future role. What types of things can you do moving forward to enhance your ability to get a new job, to find a new job, to just advance your career? Do you have a wealth manager planner? Do you have someone who's helping you with your 401k or your Roth IRA or your kids' investments for school, et cetera? Do you have a life insurance policy? Do you have someone who's helping you with your financial flexibility? Do you have an attorney? Do you need an attorney? Do you have a therapist? Do you need a therapist? Do you have a doctor? Do you do your routine annual checkup? So, as far as coachability, I think the recognition is we all need help and we should be open to help. And the analogy I use also is that when I see professional golfers winning tournaments and they're interviewed and they go, I think we really did well today. I think we've really improved in our putting game. Our drives were much better. And I'm going, we and our, I mean, I only see you. I don't see anybody else. But they understand that it takes a team to be successful, right? So you are an individual player in your career, but you need a team around you to support you and advise you and be open to it. Be coachable.
Oh, that's good, that's good, and just for the listeners who are watching here, here's the other book that Paul's written that, is on my list of continued reading, I just didn't get enough time to get that one in for this episode, but,
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I just got a note that it's on audiobook now. I had it read
oh,
and it's on audiobook, so I'll be sending out an announcement on audio links. So
that's
that's an
great.
easy way to listen to it. Yep.
That's great. That's great. Being coachable and you just went down a whole list of great things. So, one being having a great coach in the business world in the role you're in, right? So,
Yeah.
like I'm thinking right now where I'm at, I have a coach and she's doing great. She's awesome and she's really gives me great pointers. But then there's that mentor level, which is the next one above in a way too, that's like looking out for your best interests across a longer vision of your career. That's so key here in this conversation to recognize there's different types of, I mean, the coach is a mentor too, but only for a more of a focused area of your career instead
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
full, right?
Yeah.
That's really great. And then, boy, the financial so important to have a good financial advisor to support you, in your, preparation for retirement because
You don't
a
want to
lot of
work
companies
forever.
no, and these companies don't have most companies don't have pensions, they just have 401ks that they're offering, so the investment's really on you to do it, so it's
Yeah.
again, owning your own career as the CEO, you gotta manage your finances like a CEO, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
If
That's
I could
great.
just say, I think of project management, right? In our field,
Yeah.
as you mentioned this, it's the building block of the business.
Right.
I mean, generating a gross margin, if I can get CEO like for a while, getting the gross margin off those projects, that's what builds the business. I mean,
100%.
you don't have revenue, you don't have profit unless you have gross margin on projects, right? And
That's right.
so I think about that, and I think it's improving a lot now, but the skill required to be an effective project manager is unbelievable. It's very sophisticated, and the
It
larger the project, the more skill you need. And so, so I think about being an effective project manager, but I also think, okay, you're an effective project manager in environmental consulting engineering. You know how many other fields and industries need effective project managers? Think of software developers and any technology company are working on new products or working with clients for integration. A project manager role, an effective one in the environmental consulting engineering industry, can be effective in many industries. And so that, to me, that's the
absolutely
difference between like a coach. You mentioned your coach, very good at providing you the skills and knowledge necessary for your role, but also that mentor says, Sean, you're a project manager. How about if you go to Apple and decide to work in their new products development team because they need project managers. It's just
right.
kind of the concept to think about, right? We,
Yeah.
there are roles in our industry that are transferable, and unless you have a mentor, it's gonna be hard to see those sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's so true, and you're right about the project manager role. That is the key role, specifically in the environmental field. I know as a consultant, if you're the PM,
Yeah,
you're the you're the leader. You're the person. I was gonna say you're the man, but you could be the woman too. But you're the boss.
yeah,
Because you have control over that project and a lot of responsibilities. I remember interviewing people back in the day, and they come in and I'm a project manager. And I was like, well, what'd you manage? Especially if they were a regulator coming into the consulting world. I'm like, oh no, so it's drastically different skills than what we. you
right.
know? Hello, ET Nation. I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. If you're enjoying the interviews we bring you, consider supporting the program by visiting my website at seankgrady.com and buy me a cup of coffee. Proceeds will go towards helping me continue producing timely content and offset production costs. I'd also like to take a moment and recognize a few of our sponsors of the show who have been amazing partners and are ET Nation legends. If you're looking for a drilling and environmental contracting firm to help you delineate the extent of contamination at your site, then look no further than Cascade Environmental. Cascade has over 37 offices across the country and offers a huge range of environmental and geotechnical drilling, site characterization, and remediation services. With their huge fleet of equipment and nationwide coverage, Cascade is a great choice to support your environmental and infrastructure needs. To learn more, check out their website at cascade-env.com. That's cascade-env.com. Hey, are you looking for an equipment rental company to help you with your next wastewater remediation or waste management project? E-Tank is the only environmental equipment rental company in the industry that offers 100% guaranteed, certified clean temporary liquid storage tanks at no additional cost. This protocol gives peace of mind for the previous customer by limiting their downstream liability, as well as the future customer by preventing any cross-contamination for all of their rental tanks. E-Tank also runs a one-of-a-kind complete maintenance program for all rental items, including liquid-tight roll-off containers, fluid transfer pumps, and filtration items. The next time you are presented with an environmental challenge, call E-Tank to come up with the solution for your problem. I want to thank one of our sponsors, WasteLink. WasteLink is the all-in-one software platform transforming how environmental professionals manage waste, connecting generators, service providers, and disposal facilities in a way that is simple, connected, and transparent. Their platform helps streamline everything from waste profiling and routing to inventory management and billing, giving you the tools you need to operate more efficiently and reduce cost. Whether you're a generator looking for better options or a service provider seeking greater efficiency, WasteLink has you covered. If you're ready to take control of your waste management processes and optimize your business, visit wasteLink.com to schedule a demo today. But it was fun. It was good. But it was It's good. So you're right. A lot of transferable skills there. Talk about, if you could, the phases we all go through during our career, like from the apprentice, an adventurer, a
Mhm.
traditionalist, an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, undiscovered, a
yeah,
reinventor. Talk about these little phases and the importance of
yeah,
knowing what phase you are in.
yeah. I call them personalities in the sense that when I was putting my book, the first book together, I met with a lot of 20-something-year-olds. At that time, I was the age of my kids' late 20s, and, my kids would always kick me under the table, but if we're at dinner or at supper or at Thanksgiving or Christmas with colleagues and friends, I'd always pull a group aside and say, "Hey, I need some help. I'm writing a book. Can you help me out?" And what I learned is that not everybody approaches their career the same, right? So I call them personalities. I think of traditionalists. A traditionalist is kind of what I was, right? And many of the baby boomers out there are traditional career developers in the sense they go to school, they get their masters, they get their certs, they get their PEs or PGs, they get a job, they promote through I started as a hydrogeologist, project manager, department manager, VP, CEO, kind of a traditional way of doing your business, right? And that's comfortable. And that's the majority of the type of career developers we have in our industry. I think because it's science based, it's analytical based, it's logic based. So
Right.
but then you also have the entrepreneur, right? Who really doesn't want to work for someone else. I mean, that's the bottom line. A lot of entrepreneurs just don't like to work for other people. And
They just
so
can't, they want to run their own ship.
so that's fine, but
Yeah.
that's just a personality type. And you find yourself joining organizations and you go, it's too big, it's too small. They aren't critical and thinkers enough. They're not looking out there. I can do better. I'm gonna go find a job. You have those personalities. And so I characterize these 6 personalities, and it just helps, I think, when I talk to people, I can assess how they look at their career. And so those 6 personality types are just things I use to kinda help the coach the mentee. I may have one mentee who's, I'll call him George. His name isn't George, but I'll call him George. George, he called me about a job he was looking at, someone had offered him 3 opportunities. Great, perfect, create opportunities for yourself. Rule number 1. Rule number 2, pick one. And he was having a hard time picking it, right? And I said, and he picked one that I thought was a little inconsistent with his personality. It was a bigger company. He's very entrepreneur. I
Mhm.
said, George, you're going to have to stick with this job for a while. You're going to get bored. You're going to get antsy. You're going to think that it's too big and too cumbersome because it is. It's a big company. It's a multinational company. But, you're an entrepreneur going into a traditional organization. He said, I know, Paul. I said, okay, well, make a commitment, if you will. If you do select this job, make a commitment to stick there for a while, because you need to learn the patience
Right.
and give yourself some time to learn those organizations. So I could tell he's still there, which is great. He's doing well. He's performing. But you can tell if there's a fit from the personality type you have when you look for roles.
Oh, that's really good.
You've
Yeah.
always you've managed an entrepreneur probably before that
Oh,
doesn't want the process and systems and the policies and the procedures and, you know
I could probably admittedly say that I was a bit of an entrepreneur in my consulting firm because I started a group that didn't exist before and became very successful, which is good for me. But
Yeah,
no, it was good. It was fun, and yeah, I probably bucked some
yeah,
bumped some heads along the way, but it was all because we had a vision and we wanted to execute,
yeah,
and we didn't want to be tied down to the traditional approach that
yeah,
wasn't going to get us there.
yeah. And you came from a good place. You came from a genuine place. You came from a place that was,
Yeah,
meaningful,
100%.
meaning well and not to hurt or interfere with things. You just want to make things better and you want to do it faster than the organization wanted to do it.
Yes, and that's a great way to put it too. I would agree with that 100% because it was. So, well, look, let's talk a little bit about, if we could, in your book, you talk about lots of ways to improve your career, but how should one invest in themselves to, as they get started in their career? What's the best
Yeah.
way someone can invest in themselves?
Well, if you go back to the ADAPT life cycle, there's different investments, right? I mean, you think of the acquire mode, you're investing in education, training, mentorships. You might be doing internships. There's a lot of things that you're doing in the acquire phase of your life cycle that costs you money. You're digging a money pit.
Mm,
And you don't get out of your money pit until you're probably in your produced life cycle stage, right? You're always investing yourself in the produced life cycle stage. You're starting to create some financial flexibility. You're starting to pay off these investments you've made, and you're starting to accumulate wealth. So the good thing is you do go from negative to positive over time. But from a financial standpoint, it takes money, it takes time to make commitments and investments. So the initial stage, I think, is building that technical acuity. I mean, in our field, you need to have a technical acuity of something, whatever it
Right.
might be. Your develop phase, you're investing in on-job training. You're having to work the 80 hours or the 70 hours because you have to be billable, and you also have to take these classes, and maybe you want to go on for a master's, or maybe you want MBA, whatever, right? You're
Mhm.
investing in yourself, even that first job, that second job, that third job, you're still investing in yourself, primarily in training and education. I think when you get to your apply phase, this is where you're in your career, you feel like you're comfortable, you found your path, you found your organization. You're really starting to fine tune your brand. And there's a couple tidbits on brand, both your professional brand and your
Yeah,
personal.
we're gonna get to that one. I
Yeah,
got a
okay.
good question for you on that
All right.
one.
But you're investing in your network. Investing in your network is undervalued. I mean, you think about your network in the environmental consulting engineering business, and it sounds like a big industry, but at the end of
That's
the
pretty
day,
small.
it's pretty small, right? And so the
Yeah, it
investments
is.
you make there, I think, in your apply or even your produce life cycle stage, you're really investing in building a network, which means trade shows, conferences, classes, collegial
Recipe.
events in the company, all that stuff you're doing right now, right? Building
Sure.
that network. And then when you get into your produce and into your transition years, you're pulling off all those investments. Not pulling them off, but you're
You're
cashing in.
tapping into them. You're
You're
tapping into the
cashing in,
investments.
right?
Yeah,
You're cashing in your best.
100%.
So I think you look at it as a 40-year investment payback cycle, if you will, from a CFO standpoint.
Yeah.
And investments are a little bit different, but it's really investing in your own capabilities and your networks that you create in the industry to promote yourself and to help yourself move forward.
Well, I think, one of the things I learned just when I started out my career, I spent 8 years as an environmental regulator in this field. That's what I
Yeah,
started. I was a regulator,
yeah.
and then I took the jump to go into consulting, and I took a little heat from my former regulator buddies. They said, "You're going to the dark side."
Exactly.
And I said, "No, no, 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 no." I said, "I'm going to the green side. I'm gonna get paid. I'm gonna go earn my potential." I
That's
mean,
right.
earning your potential is a big driver for a lot of people. Like, if you can do something great, whether that's, in sales or, I mean,
Mhm.
consulting's a lot of sales really when you
Yeah,
break it down, but it's also delivery of service. But if you can deliver and you can earn your potential, and that
yeah.
was so attractive to me. But when I got here, I quickly realized, unfortunately, I wasn't a geologist and I wasn't an engineer.
Uh-huh.
I'm a biology major. I said, "Boy, I need something. I need a credential." So I invested in myself and got a credential with a certified hazardous material manager, CHMM.
Right. Perfect.
And that was over 20 years ago that I obtained that credential, and it was a
Yeah,
hard, credential to obtain. But, it really prepared you and set you apart a bit from others in the industry, in addition to the fact that it allowed me to sign off on remediation work plans as
yeah,
an environmental professional. Not all states were like that, but many states were, accepted
yeah.
that, which was great because now I had, the ability. I didn't have to rely on an engineer. Of course, I would rely on an engineer if I
Mhm.
needed them to review something, or a geologist to review something, but I didn't need them to do it on my behalf, right? So
Right.
it was a great leveling up activity, and I would highly recommend anybody listening to this, seek out a credential that's above and beyond what you went to school for
That's such a
industry wise.
great story because you really do you saw a need to create some, additional search or I guess, value in your role, and you went out and got it. There's project management training, right? There's
Yeah,
project management
DMP.
credential. There's
Yeah,
PEs, there's PGs, there's all kinds of stuff you can do to fine tune your skill and create that differentiator, which is really classic. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, that's really, really good. And I do think though, Paul, the days of the 70, 80-hour work weeks in the consulting world are largely gone.
Yeah.
That was traditional old school. When we came up, I mean, the expectation is if you weren't, 120% utilized, then you weren't even being considered for these
Yeah.
next level associate or
Yeah.
principal promotions. That's just the way it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you still
which,
have to, so organizations still strive for 75, 80% utilization, right? So that
oh
means,
yeah.
on the balance, you have people working
Oh, and I'm not saying
100-hour charges.
there are
Yeah,
not
yeah.
some that are working at those hours, but the young professionals coming into the workforce, they're just not about it. They're just like, "No way. Why would I do that?" The Gen Zs, they're like, "40, you're gonna be that's gonna be good."
There's a whole
In a
different
lot of
subject
instances.
on generational differences in the workforce, which we could save for a later podcast.
Sure, yeah, that would be good. But I mean, I think it's interesting that I mean, and not that they're not working, they work hard. Actually, I think work more efficient than a lot of us
Way
because
more efficient. Yeah,
right,
way more efficient.
they technology savvy and they're ahead of the curve when it comes to that compared to the older gray hairs in the company who are still struggling to like, how do I access this or how's this program work or do you use AI?
Exactly. Do I need to use SharePoint? Do I need to do it online? Where's my
Yeah,
hard
right.
drive? I wanna do it put on my hard drive. Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. Everything's in the cloud now, so get used to it. But look, hey, let's dive into some of these tidbits because you had some great tidbits that I thought were just very poignant and great to talk about. So, how about number 2? So, early on in the tidbit section, you had number 2 says, "Stay up with technology." We're talking about it right now. So, stay up with how important is it for all ages to stay up on technology?
So I did my thesis, right, on a freight and transport model as a digital, it was on tape. It was on a tape, and, then it went to it started on a deck of cards, punch cards, and there was a box literally 3 foot long of, cards I had to run every night. I had to wait overnight for my results. In the morning, if a card was chipped or folded or wrongly punched, I have to go make a new card and do it all over again the next day, right? So that technology, obviously, who does that now? You can do a groundwater phane transport model on an airplane at 40,000 feet on your hard drive. The speed of technology is increasing. I think you talk about the effectiveness of Gen Zs. One of the reasons they're so effective is because they know how to use technology. And the effectiveness in their role really comes from the ability to use technology wisely. And it will continue to change. And so, there's always going to be a gap in older generations to younger generations in the acceptance and use of technology. But, as you come into the workforce, expect things to change and expect technology to really take I would say your least thoughtful tasks and commoditize them into the sense that technology can do it. So I was at a conference a month ago, EFCG conference, which many of you probably know EFCG. And I was working on a presentation for HR leaders in the environmental consulting engineering world. And AI obviously is a big discussion topic for this industry. And there are a lot of views on AI. I'm positive to AI because I think, again, it's a new technology that only help us evolve our solutions. As consultants, we're solution providers, and why not use technology to advance solutions? My feeling is that, AI will help us get to the critical things that need to be solved. There are AI tools now that are doing a lot of routine tasks or developing routine items, deliverables, production items that we need to deliver to our clients. And I think that's fantastic because what it allows us to do is focus on more higher level thinking, bigger problems, and relationship development. AI is not going to replace relationship development for the short term. Maybe it will over time, but in the short term, it's still up to us to build relationships with our clients, with our employees, with our colleagues, with our professional networks. The relationship building part of our roles and our careers are super important. It gives us more time to do that, frankly, if we have tools that are supporting some of the routine tasks. So, I'm interested in I will probably not use technology or AI in my role. I use it for marketing and stuff now, just kind of as a fun thing. But the whole replacement of some of these routine tasks with technology is kind of the rule of the game. It makes you more effective. It makes you have better communication. It allows you to do more work. These are all characteristics of any technology, whether it's AI or it's the first cell phone. Again, be thoughtful, focus your career on developing the higher level solutions and building those skills that allow you to build relationship with others because those are
So
things that technology won't replace.
so true. I love that point about not AI is not going to replace relationship building. I just kind of read an article the other day and said that buyers want to develop and work with companies that have people they can develop relationships with,
Yeah.
even though they like technology and they want the technology to be infused in the service and the delivery, but they want to be able to have communications with people to help bounce off the ideas with them on
Mhm.
or address their concerns in a personal way, not just writing up some summary or some AI response.
Mhm.
It's just, yeah, I think that's going to be one of the differentiators for a lot of people moving forward is their ability to develop relationships with people and develop that network.
Mhm.
We talked about network earlier, and how you build that over a career and investing in that. To me, that's probably one of the most important
Mhm.
aspects of your career that isn't taken advantage of as much as it could be.
Mhm.
I haven't come across really any senior leader that I've met in recent, years who has got a job working for a company by just applying for an open application.
Yeah.
Usually it's somebody they have been connected to in their network to get that job.
Yeah.
It's not because I applied for a lot of jobs when I was in on the market recently and not a single response came back to me. And what I was starting to realize, especially from some of the people that were recruiters or whatnot, they said, "Well, Sean, did you use AI to put together your resume?" And I was like, "Well, no. Why?" And he goes, "Well, because they're using AI to scan your resume, and if it doesn't tick those words, phrases, you're getting you're not
Yeah.
getting scored. And even
Yeah.
though you're probably the most qualified person they could possibly interview, you don't score because your resume didn't resonate with their AI reader." And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, okay. Now you have to have a
Mhm.
different resume for every time you apply.
Exactly. Yeah. Has
I
to be
mean,
role specific, company specific. You gotta narrow it right down. Yeah.
yeah, and touch on all the phrases that the job description said. So,
Yeah.
anyway, so technology is interesting.
There is a
Well,
gap. So the technology piece, if I can just say something, there is a gap. It's difficult for entry level people now to get into organizations because a lot of those, think about it, your first couple jobs, you're making tables, writing intros, doing maps, doing
mhm,
charts, graphs,
yeah,
doing SOPs, that kind of stuff. It can
yeah.
all be done automated now, right?
Right.
So
"Hey, write
when
me
you
a
come,
scope of work for this
yeah,
groundwater event." Oop.
yeah. And so those things are being replaced by technology, which means where do people come in? And
Right,
schools aren't really encouraging AI as a tool because of obvious reasons, I think. So then, how do you come in and provide value right away? So organizations have to kind of retool their thinking too that, there are people going to be coming in and we could probably do it with AI, but we're not going to. Some of these things because
right,
we need to have a pipeline, right? If you don't bring
right.
people in, you don't have employees for the next 30 years. So
No.
there's a challenge in what do we bring new people in for? What do we assign them to? What's meaningful? We'll keep them engaged because again, a lot of those things that can be done, automatically or automated at this point. Yeah.
One tidbit I liked, which was, tidbit 23, mentors are important. We've been touching on this topic, but,
Yeah.
here's the question I have is, how does one go about finding the mentor to really help them in their career, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Mm.
how do you know that the person or how can you identify a good mentor to help you that's willing to help you?
Yeah. Uh, Yeah. It's probably not your mom or your dad. I've come to that conclusion. But
That's
it is
true.
probably, yeah, my kids would say that, right? But
Yeah.
here's the thing is I think it's important to have an internal and external mentor. There are a lot of companies have mentoring programs, right? Which is a good attempt at connecting people internally to
Yeah.
experienced personnel. And I think the
Right.
internal mentor can really help you navigate the political agendas, the culture around the organization, right? No,
Mhm.
admittedly, they're not going to be highly motivated to get you a job outside of their firm, right? I mean, come on,
Sure.
let's be
Yeah.
honest, right? So even though, there may be opportunities for you outside the firm, that internal mentor is really not going to be helping you. Sometimes they don't, right? And then an external mentor. So the external mentor can be your crazy uncle. Don't recommend that. But you do have family and friends that can help you a little bit early on in your career, right? They can kind of help you gain clarity on what you're going to do, what you want to do, what your passion is, things like that. I used a lot of clients of mine as mentors because I valued their input. I thought
Mhm.
I was in a BD role, so I was externally facing a lot of times. And I found a couple of people that I really enjoyed as clients, and I asked them, you have to ask them, would you be
Right.
my mentor? And
Right.
what does that mean, Paul? Well, I want to connect with you on a quarterly basis. I want to discuss where I am in my career and like your insight on where my strengths and weaknesses are. That's all you have to ask, but you have to
Right.
ask. And so it's important to identify those people you just find as, I want to be like them, or I think I could be like them, or they have skills and knowledge that I don't have. I was in
Mhm.
charge of setting up an office in Mexico City for what is now WSP, but I speak a little Spanish. I lived overseas for a while with my folks, but I wasn't a native liver. And so one of my guys, Bob Salazar, who I said, Bob, I need your help. Would you help me out? He says, absolutely, Paul. And what you'll find is people want to help you.
Yeah.
You make the ask, they'll go, what is it? What do you want me to do? Oh, yeah, I'd love to do that. So finding your mentor is just, and then it changes over time, right? When I look back, I've probably had 6 mentors. First one was a client. Um, yeah, client that I did a tank job for, right? Who hasn't done a tank job? And
Yeah. Leaning
And my
on
last one was really my last manager, Ann Massey, who I thought was a great person, great leader, and I loved working with her. So, you develop these mentorships
right.
throughout your career. Yeah, but
Yeah.
ask
Yeah,
for it.
but ask and identify one that might be they could be younger than you as well, right? I mean, if you're struggling with technology
Yeah,
and who's somebody who's a savant in that, yeah, I mean, and they're really on top of things, see if they'll mentor you as because you're a novice and you need help. And so don't think of an age level at times too. I mean, obviously it's nice to have someone who's a little more experienced to help you in certain areas, but sometimes you're not going to get the experience you need unless you go to somebody younger.
yeah, yeah. No, it's really those people that you admire, that you think you like to learn more from,
Hmm.
and they have insights outside of your current normal
Right.
network.
I
Yeah.
like that. That was really good. A good way to identify a good mentor. I appreciate that. We'll talk about the difference between tidbit 20, which is personal brand matters, and tidbit 46, professional brand matters.
It's kind of a fine line. But personal brand is what people say after you leave the party.
Right.
Professional brand is what people say after you leave the client meeting. If you
Okay.
look at it, right?
Yeah, right,
Think
yeah.
about it. Oh, he was leaving a party. Nice guy, fun to be with. Hey, we had some great conversations about football or sports or hobbies or whatever, right? To me, that's kind of a personal brand. Hey, this guy could be fun to be around. I could go out and have fun, and maybe we'll go hook up next time we're in town. We'll go out to dinner. So, that's kind of what I consider the personal brand. And, personal brands are important, right? I mean, it's not helpful to be the guy over in the corner sitting at the chair during a party, right? It's just not helpful. You don't get very far unless there's another person that wants to sit by you that wants
Yeah,
to be over in the corner. You
right,
might find
right,
one other person. But the professional brand is I really trust him with my project or her with
right.
my project. I really think they're smart, they're approachable.
Mhm.
They know my business. They know their company, they represent their company well. Those are things that I feel like you can carry on with a professional brand. And, one of the things is when you get up in your career and you start representing a firm, having that professional brand and the trust by your management team that you'll carry that professional brand forward in a meaningful way and represent the firm, it gives you a lot of freedom. They don't have to worry about, well, what's Paul doing? Oh boy, I wonder what he's saying to BP. Oh boy, I don't know if he's going to say something great about my company or not. If you have a professional brand that's trustworthy, that's professional, that's competent, that's capable, that's aligned with the organization, you get a lot of freedom. And,
Yeah.
when you get along your career life cycle, you want that freedom, right? You want that
Yeah.
freedom to go out and find work, to work with people, to build your networks, to advise for clients. And so I think that professional brand helps you with your next job, but also helps you with your current job and gives you latitude to act, to behave.
Yeah.
You can always ask for
No.
a little bit of forgiveness if you have a good brand, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, I agree. But I think too, I like that approach to having that representation of your professional brand. And I mean, how thrilling is it for a company to say, "Hey, Sean, you go talk to these clients and fix it because we trust you," right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's empowering, right?
Yeah. No, it's a good place to be. And we
Yeah,
talk about in my second book, I talk about the power dynamics between employee and employer. If you have a good brand, you've just built a little power for yourself. I don't mean this in a bad way. I just say,
no,
the
no,
scale's a little bit on your side now. That you have a
right.
good brand, you're carrying forward the right messages. Why not ask for that raise? Why not ask for that promotion? Why not ask for that new assignment? Why not if you're carrying yourself in a positive way?
Well, one of the tidbits you talked about was dress for success, if I recall. There was one in there. I mean, and I think that carries a little coverage into your personal brand and
Yeah,
also your professional brand, right? Um,
yeah,
I think that there's a lot of folks in the industry who have kind of brought down their level of dress into a professional setting. I think we as a society have dumbed down a little bit of how we dress, and unfortunately, in my mind, but like Crocs, I mean, I just can't do Crocs. Hey dudes, I can't do hey dudes. That's just me, but that's my kind of standard that I'm like. But you know
yeah.
what? A
And you
lot of
hate,
people like them, but at the same time, it's like, okay, how do you dress for success? Also represents or gives that first impression, right?
yeah, yeah. My rule of thumb when I would coach primarily client managers, I'd say dress one level down from your client. It's like if you go into a client and you're wearing French cuffs, and I love French cuffs and cufflinks. I love them. I think they're
Yeah,
great. And I love
right.
a nice suit coat and
Yeah.
slacks, and I like that. I like nice polished shoes. I like that stuff. But I never wore that unless I was going to New York City working with Getty
Lawyers.
Realty or lawyers or whatever. Right? I just because
Right.
if I went to Houston and went to ExxonMobil rolling like that, where people are wearing polo shirts and khakis, they'd think I was weird. Right?
Yeah, know your audience,
Yeah.
where you're
So,
going, right?
and you hate to judge people by their appearance, but a lot of people do, and you just have to feel comfortable, and you have to present yourself well and create that brand image. I worked with a guy at Secor. No one will know who he is. So, and they'd probably know who he was if I gave him his nickname, but he would wear like surfing stuff into BP meetings, right? Not
Yeah.
surfing like wetsuits or anything like that.
Sure, but he would
The
be
hang
like,
ten, the hang ten.
Panama Jack hanging out, like
Yeah, and that was his brand. "Oh,
Right.
yeah, how you doing? Great to see you," So he was able to create that. I guess I just wasn't cool enough to do that, so I'd always dress a little bit less than my client.
No, that's a good recommendation. I always kinda think, "Hey, you only have one chance to make a good impression, so
That's true. Yeah,
show up like you're ready to,
yeah,
do the job and impress." And even if you're same level or even a touch, you can always dress down a little bit. You can take that jacket off if you have to
yeah.
and meet them at their level, so,
I had a lot of blue
um
blazers during my career, and that was a pretty handy thing to wear.
yeah, yeah, polo and a blue blazer, you're good to go. You can wear you can pretty much fit in anywhere with that. Alright, let's talk about tidbit 49. Organization knowledge matters. Why is it important to understand the company's strategy, performance, leadership, and organizational history?
The bottom line is they'll move on without you if you don't believe in what they're doing. And you'd rather have control over your destiny. And again, that's kind of a negative way of looking at it. But organizations have a path forward. They know generally where they want to go, what kind of culture they want to establish, what their vision mission is, how they're organized, how they reward people. All that is part of their system. That's what I do that when I'm not coaching. I help people with their strategic alignment. And so there is a path forward for organizations. And so don't be surprised. Keep up to date with where they're going, understand what their future direction is, what services they're going to be offering, what their needs are, who their new clients are going to be, what their markets are. Those are important things for you to kind of retool yourself if you need to. I see we're going into data centers, whatever. They need more infrastructure support. I need to beef up on my civil engineering work, right? I think I'd like to take an assignment with a new initiative that's coming out to set a new path forward for the company. Keeping in touch with the company and the organization and where they're going is going to only benefit you over the longer term. And it will keep you in the know. You should be in the know.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's real important that you know who your leaders are. A little bit of that history. I don't know how many presentations I've been in, and where are you guys from again? And how long you been doing this? And you get asked, and you should have a response. You should be prepared to explain to your customer, your clients, the history and the success you've had as a company, because that's why you're there to represent it. So
Mhm.
absolutely. I think it's real important. Making your mark. Tidbit 65. Why is it important to set a clear vision, desired outcomes, and expected behaviors when you want to make your mark?
Well, again, back to the life cycle, right? If you're in your produce years of your life cycle, the P, you're hopefully making your mark there in the sense that you're leaving a legacy. I mean, there's more to work than just charging hours. You can make your mark in different ways. You can make your
Right.
mark as a strong technical leader, someone who invented a new program to develop stormwater monitoring activities, a new technology that's developed for mine water decontaminate. And there's all kinds of things you can do to make your mark from a technical standpoint. You can make your mark as a leader, as a manager, as a project manager. You can make your mark as a business development person, selling business, developing business relationships. I still have a friend of mine from BP is coming up to visit me up in Traverse City for the holidays with his wife over July 4th. A client of mine, right? For, I don't know, 40 years, something like that.
Wow.
I feel like
Yeah.
I made a mark. I did something for him and he was successful and he's continues to be successful. So you can make a mark in different ways. It doesn't need to mean you have to be CEO and you have to have the title. It just do something meaningful that people will remember you by
Right.
and do in a way that's well spirited and met well.
Well, that's a great way to close out this interview, Paul. This has been a fantastic interview, and one of the taglines I've used on this podcast for several years is, make a positive impact in someone's life today, and it's so true. If we can do that to make our mark,
Yeah.
you will have lived a fulfilled life, and you'll be remembered positively, and you'll have achieved your goals in life. And so I really appreciate you coming on the show. I really appreciate this book. Own your own career. No one else will. And these tidbits, so valuable, great nuggets of wisdom. And I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to own the life you deserve. And I'm sure we could have got into work-life balance conversations and all that, because that seems to be a running theme in a lot of people's minds as they're trying to navigate their career. But there's more to come on that. I did recently quickly saw a nice little post of yours about some educational training that you're offering. And I wanted
Yeah.
to give you an opportunity to present it and promote it here on the show before we leave.
Thank you. So yeah, I partnered with a fellow by the name of Jeff Dutton, and you might know Jeff. He works for Eurofins now as a regional salesperson. And again, thinking about mentors that are younger than you, Jeff is probably 30 years younger than I am. He's been very helpful in helping me kind of think through things. So he volunteered to create this training session. I provide the content, but it's a 6-day online training session. It's email based. So if you link in, it's called .com. You link in, you get a session every day for 6 days, and it's a self-guided training session and kind of just helps you frame up, how you look at your career, what kind of value it brings to your life, and how you create that career life partnership. So career-life partnership road.
That's great. And, I'm sure I'll see Jeff on the road somewhere along the way and I get to meet him. I was just met a bunch of his colleagues at the Patel conference last week,
Yeah.
and that was a lot of fun. But so, Paul, how do the listeners get a hold of your book
Yeah.
or
The
books?
easiest way is to get on Amazon, type Paul Goudreault in there. You'll find my author page. There's 2 books. And my audio for my second book just came out today. So it's being released. I can release it anytime. I got the notification that's out today. Again, just go to Amazon.com, go to my author page, Paul Goudreault, or go to your local bookstore, and you'll have to order it from the local bookstore. Yeah.
We'll put links on the podcast website page too for listeners. They can go to and quick link it. But this has been a great conversation, Paul. Really appreciate you coming on board, and thanks for everything you're doing, for being a mentor. It's great.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening and watching the show. If you enjoyed the show, then please share it with your friends and coworkers on social media and tell somebody in person. Thanks for being with us, ET Nation.